at length by our classical jurists. But overall, I think the view that's held, at least by most scholars today, is that the tamlik issue is restricted only to the first 4 recipients of the 8 recipients of the zakah. That is the fuqara and the masakin, the destitute and the needy, and the collectors of the zakah. But when we come to the other 4, the freeing of slaves, or by analogy, the freeing of captives, the relieving of the debts of debtors, and Ibn Sabil, those who are passing in lands and are stuck in various countries, and of course fi sabilillah. In these matters, the issue of tamlik is not there. The zakah is spent for the cause, for that benefit. You don't have to give your zakah to the hands of the person overburdened with debt. If you give the zakah to the creditor of that indebted person who's a recipient zakah, that is of course valid. This is the opinion which is held by the vast majority, at least, of scholars today. As for using zakah for overall, social projects, as you mentioned, building, for example, hospitals or schools. The Islamic Fiqh Academy has some positions, some rulings on this, but of course, this has to be also supervised by some centralized body, and it should be such that you can confirm that the beneficiaries of these projects are actually the recipients of zakah, and that the projects could be guaranteed by third parties, such that if the project fails, there is a third party which can bail out the project. Because this is, when you are investing the zakah in such projects, you are actually making a decision on behalf of the recipients, without being actually given this power or authority or delegation. You are not delegated by the recipients to do this. So if we are going to do it, there must be a number of conditions. There must be some third-party guarantors, and if there is actual dire need at any certain time, they must be of a type that either the project will be liquidated and made into liquid, so that the recipients needs are addressed immediately, or also again a third party will guarantee the provision of an equal amount of capital. If there was enough reliable statistics of how much zakat is globally collectible in the world, rather than how much is collected. These are the very first basics that we have to deal with if we are going to efficiently or make zakah realize its objectives, its maqasid, in the most efficient manner possible. We don't even know how much, reliably, we don't even know how much zakat is due on an annual basis, and indeed how much zakah is collected on an annual basis. One point, if I may say, Dr. Qadi mentioned in his presentation, is that he mentioned the Gulf countries, almost all of them, as countries where zakat is collected centrally, which is not the case. Only in Saudi Arabia, of the countries he mentioned, actually only in Saudi Arabia and Oman is zakat collected by central authorities. Otherwise, it is the left to the individual whether he or she wants to give zakah or not. This is another.
Thank you, Sheikh. Thank you. We'll come to the zakat issue later again, but let me just direct a question to Dr. Amjad Saqib. Doctor, I have 2 questions for you. First of all, how do you see the role of brotherhood or mawakhat in addressing this pandemic? And drawing on your own experience of the last 2 decades at Akhuwat, how do you see that concept helping in this COVID-19 crisis?
Hard and beautiful first question, and I'm so thrilled and enjoying all opinions being expressed. So my compliments and congratulations to the organizers for bringing so many good people and using this technology for furtherance of understanding about Islamic finance, poverty, and supporting our brothers and sisters. Now, coming to your question, Mawakhat. Mawakhat is, alhamdulillah, a very powerful concept. And when we adopted this concept as a way of life in 2000, it has brought a great revolution and change in lives of the millions of the people. Mawakhat refers to an episode in Islamic history when Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, migrated from Makkah to Medina. And then those people who are having good economic background, good social status, because of this journey, they got poor financially. So in the new city of Medina, they wanted to earn something and have a very decent life. So, but they lacked the capital. So Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, came up with a wonderful idea, and he asked the residents of Medina that one resident of Medina will adopt one person coming from Makkah, and this was called Mawakhat, or brotherhood, and this was based on sacrifice, giving, and sharing. And those people who showed this spirit of Mawakhat were highly acclaimed. So as a result of this methodology or a strategy, those people who came from Makkah, and they were empty-handed, but within a short span of time, with the support of their brothers in Medina and through the spirit of Mawakhat, they became rich traders. So now, what is the message in this whole episode? Is it a one-time incident? We thought that it is not a isolated instance in history of Islam. It is in fact a way of life, a philosophy, a thought that if in a society there are two sections, one haves and one have-nots. So if we connect haves and have-nots together, one person or one family from the haves adopts one person or one family from have-nots. So through this mechanism of sharing, we can bring those people who are have-nots, up in the life. We can help them come out of poverty. So this is the basic, philosophy, and we adopted it as such in Pakistan, that if in Pakistan 50% people are poor and 50% are non-poor, so if we are able to establish this bond of solidarity, so we will be having a better society. So this is the background. Then we thought that what would be the practical manifestation or demonstration of this Mawakhat. So we thought that another Islamic concept of Qarz-e-Hasan should be brought in, and those people who are haves, if they give some money and create a credit pool, and those people who are have-nots are given that money from that credit pool through a custodian organization, which you can call Qarz-e-Hasan organization or Islamic microfinance organization. So this is that organization will become a conduit, and the whole credit pool will be raised by haves and utilized by have-nots, and they will return it. Hence, this virtuous cycle will continue. And we also expected that those borrowers which are taking money today may be able to give more as a choice, so that pool of money increases. So this was in the beginning, 2000, 2001. When we came up with this idea, people started laughing that how would it be possible? What is Mawakhat? Is it applicable in this society, in this 1450 years after? Is it possible to give Qarz-e-Hasan? So we told them that Qarz-e-Hasan already exists as an individual practice. What we are doing is nothing new. We're just institutionalizing that practice. So that was the beginning of Akhuwat. So we named the organization Akhuwat, which derives inspiration from the spirit of Mawakhat and utilized Qarz-e-Hasan as its strategy. So in the initial years, it was very difficult to raise the money, but as you have very kindly told that we have, alhamdulillah, in 19 years struggle, we have become the biggest Qarz Hasan, our interest-free program in the world. We have served around 4 million families, and currently we have active borrowers to the tune of nearly 1 million. And this programs, its barakat and blessings may be assessed from the fact that our recovery is 99.9%. We have 800 offices throughout Pakistan, and around 5,000 employees are working day and night. They are imbibed with the spirit of, we are different from microfinance. Microfinance is not an end for us. It is a means to achieve an end, and end is a society where everybody has an opportunity to live a decent life. So this is, the background. So now, coming to directly to your question, that in this COVID-19, we have come up with, we have done many other things. We have given meals, ration bags, financial assistance, things like that. But we have also come up with a proposal, with a product of relief loan. Many of people in Pakistan, they are already earning, say, 40,000 rupees, or say $400 or $300 a month. But because of this, breakdown of economic activities and lockdown, their offices, their businesses have stopped. So whatever they were earning, they are not, earning now. Number one. Number two, because of during last 1.5 months or 2 months, whatever saving they had, they have consumed. Now the question is that they are unable to sustain their homes, their kitchen, and they are forced to sell some of their instruments, some of their assets, some of their material which is required to do the business. And these people at the same time are very self-respected. These are blue-collar or white-collar people, and they don't want to stand in lines or in queues to get the ration bags. So they say that if you give us $100, $200, or $300 as a relief loan, we will be able to run our kitchen for the next 2 months, say, and after 2 months, once the economic activity is restored, the people will be able to start their own businesses, and then they will be able to return this money in small monthly installments in the next 2 to 3 years. So previously we were using the productive loans. The loans were given for starting or increasing a business, but now we are introducing a consumption loan or a food loan or a relief loan concept, and we have created a big, alhamdulillah, pool, and we are inspiring the people of Pakistan that why don't you give some money, some sadaqah or some other donations in this pool of money. And we have a list of those people who had good businesses, and because of this lockdown, they are not. So besides supporting in terms of zakat or grant, a permanent rehabilitation through money, we are using this product which is not compromising the self-respect. And this is, alhamdulillah, so far we have reached hundreds and thousands of such people, and we are also inspiring the government and the state and different provincial governments and the federal government that they have served 12 million families through SSAS program by giving them a grant of 12,000 rupees. So beyond those 12 million people, families, there is another segment of society which is 3 million or 4 million. Those should be served through Qarz Hasan, which is the tested product, and we have been, alhamdulillah, doing this since last 20 years. So this is our new product. Let me take just half a minute or a minute to explain the model. The Mubakhat model, which we were the pioneers, alhamdulillah, in 2001, that has segmented the entire society in 4 parts, 4 segments. Number 1 segment is comprises of those people who are eligible for zakat only. They are widows, they are elderly, they are disabled. So they are not, capable of doing a business. So we say that maybe 5% or 10% of the whole chunk, they should be given zakat. That is their financial inclusion. Then there is a segment above that, which is 30% or 40% of the people who are able-bodied, who are economically active, who don't like to get zakat and whom we should not give zakat, so that they should be able to make their own efforts. So those people we give, that segment, we give Qarz Hasan. Whatever business they will do, they will be the recipient of all the profit of that. And then there is a third segment where Sharia compliant Islamic microfinance on the basis of profit loss sharing can be applied. And then is the fourth segment where people are rich enough and they have collaterals and they can access to any financial institutions directly. So this Muwakhat model explains financial inclusion in four categories. Number one is the zakat. Number two is the Qarz Hasan. Number three is the Sharia-based Islamic microfinance, which is based on profit loss sharing. Number fourth is collateral-based lending through Islamic finances. This is our financial inclusion model. It is linked, anchored on the spirit of Muwakhat. If you let the market rule, then you will not be able to eliminate poverty. Poverty cannot be eliminated through business. Poverty can only be eliminated through compassion, through giving, through sharing, through solidarity, through Muwakhat. So we need to adopt people and adopt families. So this is how we see. On the one side is charity. On the other side is the ruthlessness of capitalistic system. So neither charity is good enough to eliminate poverty and nor capitalism. So in between is the Muwakhat. In between is the solidarity with the poor. So this is my answer to your question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saqib. Very detailed and comprehensive answer. You've partly answered the next question that I was going to ask you about the track record of Akhuwat, 99.9% recovery. Now, what you have just said, it seems that some of the people who are facing financial difficulties are being given these consumption loans. But I guess all of the people that you have funded in the past, or large majority of the 1 million borrowers, would probably be facing the same issues. So are you already seeing delinquencies rising? And if so, what are you going to do to address this issue?
Yeah, that's very pertinent question in the current scenario. Partially, maybe out of that 1 million, active borrowers which we have, may be the recipients of these loans. And these loans will not put any extra burden on them because the installment will be too minimal, say 500 rupees a month or 700 rupees a month. So once they start earning 40,000 rupees, they will pay their previous installment, which is around 1,500 or 2,000, and additional 500 rupees. So we have conducted surveys and people are so comfortable, they say that 500 rupees installment of 1 second loan is not a difficult one. So this is, we have launched this after proper research and getting the feedback. Number two, obviously there is tremendous burden and stress on the borrowers to pay back. So in Pakistan, Securities Exchange Commission of Pakistan and State Bank has allowed, 1 year's deferment of the, installments. And what the organizations are doing, that they are not charging the interest. They have deferred the interest because they are involved in interest-based lending. But in our case, it's a unique position that we don't charge anything over and above the original amount. And you will be amazed to see, and this is the barakah, this is the blessings of Qarz Hasan, this is the sincerity of the whole program, that as compared to other conventional microfinance clients, our clients are so dedicated that they are paying our installments to a large extent. And this has amazed us because people see, as I mentioned in the beginning, microfinance is not an end for us. It is not a business for us. It is not industry for us. It is a means to achieve an end. We establish a bond of brotherhood with the family first, and then ask that what can we do for you? If you need some assistance for starting a business, here is a Qarz Hasan. So our basic arrangement, our basic association and engagement with the borrower is not a borrower or a financier, it is a brother. So I'm sure the second part of your question, that the delinquency, obviously there is a tremendous stress in the market, and organizations are making some plans and strategizing to find the solution. And there is, some people say that microfinance is facing existential crisis, because if all the amount which is outstanding, that is at risk. But I'm so humbled to mention that our borrowers are so committed, so loyal. Their loyalty is not with the money, or their loyalty is with the institution. They want to see Akhuwat flourishing. They see Akhuwat as a friend which held their hand in a situation of financial crisis. So they see Akhuwat as a permanent solution for their future financial needs. So we are confident that we will overcome this, and our borrowers will start paying within a month or so.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saqib. I know you have another commitment. You need to leave in a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you want to read in detail the journey of Akhuwat, Dr. Saqib happens to be an excellent writer as well, and some of his books are published online and also in hard copies, and you can get them over there. Thank you very much. My next question is to
just
Dr.
one, if you allow me to thank everybody. I really enjoyed this. I will be joining. I will be leaving in 15 minutes, and then I will be rejoining after some time. But let me appreciate Dr. Hassan Qadri's thoughts, and all other people. And let me submit that through joining hands, we can make this Qarz-e-Hasan model an alternate to the interest-based lending, and help overcome out of poverty. And by establishing a bond of solidarity, we will be bringing into practice the Mawakhat message, which is common to all of us and given by none other than the greatest leaders of ours, Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. Thank you very much, Suhaib. I truly appreciate your hard work in organizing this event.
Thank you very much. I don't want to take the credit. The credit goes to IOFI and Minhaj University, IRTI, and the Oman Islamic Banking and Finance College. But thank you very much. Dr. Qadri, just straight on to you. Dr. Saqib mentioned about the stress that he's facing in the model that he has because of the COVID crisis. What is it that you are seeing in your own, experience that you're having, and do you see the delinquencies rising, and how do you, how are you going to manage that? Just briefly, because I have another question for you after this.
Yes, because we have also launched Al-Mawakhat Islamic Microfinance a couple of years ago. So, Alhamdulillah, so far, as Dr. Saqib was mentioning about Akhuwat, so the similar kind of experience we have with our organization as well. The recovery rates with the loans are, Alhamdulillah, so far 100%. So not a single person has defaulted so far. And but these post-COVID-19 scenario, so we have seen, so there are two type of loans. Some people, they have borrowed loan for the second part-time business or job, and then they have a first, a main job they are doing, and their salaries are continuously coming from their first job, and the money they have borrowed, or the business or a product they have borrowed, that is for a part-time business. So those people, they have not applied, neither requested for relaxation in their installments. Plus, it's Islamic microfinance, so the installments are really low and small. But then there are people, such as people who have bought the auto rickshaws or bikes from us to drive the Uber delivery service and other things. So these people, they have, because there was no business at all in the field, no restaurants, no delivery businesses, no passengers to be picked from places. So they requested, and upon their first request, as a matter of policy, Al-Mukhad Islamic Microfinance, they have actually accommodated their request and postponed their installments for at least 3 months, so that everything, at least the lockdown is finished, everything goes back to normal, as this is the instructions of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. When you have given the money as a loan to someone, so the person who is asking for his money, so he should be nice enough or ask person in a very nice manner. And if somebody he feels that he or she cannot return the money back, so he should be accommodating, and Allah Almighty will accommodate that person in the day of at the day of judgment. So this is a matter of policy. We have postponed such installments for those people, and inshallah, when the markets will open, so they will again start giving the installments.
How many people have benefited so far from your program?
We basically developed this whole idea in 2014. So that is not a very old organization, but actually we started lending money to the borrowers. That was recently last year. So within 1 year, so it's the number is in dozens, not exceeded 100 so far. But Alhamdulillah, every single person we have accommodated or lended the money or the products of businesses. So they are not defaulted, not even for a month.
Thank you. I'll get back to you again, but let me bring in Dr. Khalid Khalifa. Khalifa, what is the importance of zakat that you see in the lives of people who are in need of humanitarian aid, and especially in the context of the current outbreak? What has been your experience?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa kullu aam wa antum bikhair jami'an. It's a pleasure to be with you, and this is a very relevant question. Let me start with some statistics to put things in context. We are now talking about 70 million people who are forcibly displaced. 70 million. This is a very huge figure. And those people are between refugees and internally displaced in their own countries. The number of refugees is about 25 million people who left their countries and fled to neighboring countries in most cases. 85% of this total do not go actually to rich countries. They go to neighboring poor countries. People leave Myanmar, for example, like the Rohingya refugees, and we are talking about 1 million displaced Muslims. They do not go to Europe or the States. They moved to neighboring Bangladesh. People leave Sudan and go to Chad. People leave South Sudan and go to Uganda. 85% of the total live in low-income countries. Then where do those people live worldwide? 60% of this total is very unfortunately living and coming from the member states of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. 60% of the total. And this is also a very shocking figure. And that's why we started to look into Islamic finance and Islamic philanthropy tools. It's a no-brainer to think of that. If 60% of your target population is living and coming from Muslim countries. That's why we are focusing on Islamic philanthropy. The situation now is very bad. If we are talking about hardships faced by normal people who are living in their own countries, you can multiply that by 10 or maybe even more in the case of a refugee who is living in another country, who is not welcomed in many places, who is not wanted by the local population or the local government, and who does not actually have access to the normal services that everybody else has. more than 90% of the refugees are not bankable in the first place. They cannot open bank accounts, they cannot apply for credit, they cannot get a loan because they do not have papers. So this is a very unique, vulnerable group of people. We started a couple of years ago to explore the potential of zakat. We said if the majority of our people of concern are actually living in Muslim countries and they're Muslims themselves, let's explore the potential of zakat. If we are talking about the minimum estimate that has been made, that I have seen recently, is about $300 billion of zakat money circulating around the world. 0.5% of that can solve all the problems of refugees, the financial problems, of course, of all the refugees and displaced people around the world. So we established a zakat program that is, I would say, almost 100% Sharia compliant. We got the required fatwas from a large number of scholars worldwide, and we went to the extra mile to make sure that we are closing all the areas of suspicion. We opened a special bank account that has no interest on it for zakat collection. We did something very difficult and very unusual for the United Nations. We waived all the administrative fees. So all the zakat contributions that are paid to UNHCR go 100% to the recipients, and we cover all the admin fees, all the overheads, including even the bank charges and the transfer fees and everything from other sources. This makes the program, in my view, probably the most effective way of distributing zakat. It's an actually opportunity for any other organization, a Muslim organization, an IFI, any other entity that wants to distribute zakat free of charge. This can be done through UNHCR. How many people did we serve? Last year only, we collected about $43 million from zakat donors, and we helped more than 1.1 million refugees. We are hoping to double this figure this year and reach more than 2 million people. And we work in very difficult areas to reach. We distribute zakat in Yemen, we distribute zakat in Afghanistan, we distribute zakat in places in Pakistan, places where it is very difficult for organizations working internationally sometimes to even transfer money. And we do that free of charge. A recent study that has been done on our program in Lebanon proved that every dollar paid in cash on zakat contributions in the country actually resulted in a 2.1 increase in the local GDP in that area without increasing the inflation at all. So we can see that it's a very proven way of assistance, and it's a way to help people who are living in protracted situations. Unfortunately, we are not talking about the displacement of a few months. The Syria situation now is 10 years old. Afghan refugees who are living in Pakistan are living there for the last 40 years. We have Somali refugees who are living in Kenya for the last 30 years, let alone the Palestinian refugees who are in displacement for more than 75 years now. So the model is working, is tried and tested, and very efficient. I encourage everybody to look at it. And I just want to conclude by saying that we just recently signed an agreement with IOFI that we are very proud of. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. $43 million is definitely a sizable amount, 1.1 million lives to be touched with that money, and doubling this year, hopefully. Did you think about, or are you considering forging any partnerships with Islamic financial institutions or with multilateral institutions like the IDB or others, to basically spread this model and maybe to enhance the reach?
Thank you, Brother Sohaib. We are in regular communication with a large number of partners worldwide. We are partners with the Islamic Development Bank, with the Islamic Solidarity Fund. We are discussing the potential of waqf as well with them. We are working with a large number of Muslim charities around the world, and I would say a small number of international financial institutions and Islamic banks. We are trying to expand this circle, at least to include areas like purification funds that can also be used to assist refugees, to offer this facility that is free of charge to Islamic financial institutes that would like to engage with the displaced worldwide. I just forgot to mention that when we speak about refugees, we speak about at least 4 of the descriptions in the Quran that applies to them. If we say that zakat is distributable to 8 categories, then the refugees are poor, ultra poor, some of them, so fuqara and masakin. Many of them are gharimun, they are indebted, and all of them are forcibly displaced, abna' sabil. And some scholars even say that we can apply riqab on them, because if you give them zakat, you are kind of saving them from being enslaved to the displacement condition. So a minimum of 4 descriptions apply to them, and it's an opportunity in my view.
Well, thank you very much. That was very enlightening, actually. And I think one should think about the refugees in that manner, that they seem to be much more deserving in that sense. And, you know, the way you have described, I think in some places, except for UNHCR and maybe a couple other organizations, it's almost impossible to even get there and try and help, even if you want to. So, you know, thank you very much for who is working with the IDB on a number of waqfs. And my question to you, Mr. Raza, is that do you think the role of the waqf can be revived to become relevant again in improving the lives of common people? And what are the biggest obstacles that need to be removed, whether jurisprudential or governance related or regulatory related? And what would be 1 or 2 radical steps that, you know, you can think of that one can take to move in that direction?
Thank you very much, Zaib, and I would like to thank you for inviting me for this prestigious occasion and this forum. Well, this is a very pertinent question, and you know, the concept of waqf is not very well understood in the recent world. So in that context, we have to see the historical perspective of waqf. You know, waqf had played a vital role in providing the social needs to the common man without affecting the government treasury. This is the most important part. Today, what we are considering is that the government has this whole sole responsibility to provide support to the common man. But actually, in the past, we have seen that waqf played a vital role to support the social needs of the common man. Like, I'll start with the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he established 2 types of waqf. One is the religious waqf in shape of Masjid Quba and Masjid Nabawi, and second is the social waqf, when he advised Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu that please, what you do is that you have a piece of land in Khaybar, so make it waqf, and the produce of that waqf should be used for the welfare of the community. Similarly, at that time, the Prophet ﷺ also requested Sayyidina Usman to purchase a well for the Muslim community, because the water at that time was so expensive and it was not easy for the Muslims to afford it. So that shows that the social aspect was also introduced at that point in time. Similarly, we have seen in Umayyad and Abbasiyad and Fatimids caliphates that they also contributed a lot of waqf. In fact, it is not wrong to say that 60% of the public services were provided through the institution of waqf. And they divided into 2 main categories. First is belongs to the hospital, educational institution, yani social services. Whereas the second one related to the culture and scientific studies, like production of books, construction of libraries, and establishment to the religious and the secular sciences scholars. If you allow me, I will like to tell you some 2 or 3 main Waqf institution that was established and helped the common man. That were, as of today, Al-Azhar University, famous. It was established through the Waqf Fund. Cordova University in Spain, Al-Nouri Hospital that was established and it operates for 7 centuries. Tulani Hospital, which is famous with the name of Bimaristan, and the pharmacies established by Ben Wazir, that the medicines were provided to everybody, even if they are not able to come to the pharmacies, it was provided to their house. So that shows that the Awqaf has played a vital role in all walks of life, if it is maintenance of the mosque or the orphanage house or the widows, or even the work was established for the animals and birds.
Mr. Raza, that is granted, and thank you for recounting some of those. Can you, explain what are some of the new models of Waqf that are coming through?
I'm coming to them. That's the reason I was trying to give you the background that how Waqf was important for the common man. Now, in fact, nowadays, where after the Second World War, we have seen that a lot of Waqf was either damaged, confiscated, and centralized. So that gives the discouragement to the people, that the people lost their interest for developing the new Waqf. But fortunate enough that in 1997, in the 6th Conference of Awqaf Ministers, we have seen that a special fund called Awqaf Property Investment Fund was established. And the mandate was given to the Islamic Development Bank to develop the Waqf properties which are idle, and the income of that can be used to support the philanthropic organizations and the ministries in the Islamic world so that they can continue their philanthropic activities. And with this, a $50 million fund was established and it started operation in 2001. This was a main impetus to change the business model of Waqf. And so far, 54 projects of 1.9 billion has been done, and almost in 35 countries. So looking to this, so many other institutions also came forward in the Middle East, in the Central Asia, in the Far East. And we have seen that so many philanthropic organizations adopted this type of model. And this is that the philanthropy should not be based on donations. It should come through the sustainable source of income. And they also started to financing the social project associated with some of the projects which provide them the sustainable model to these philanthropic organizations. And that is the reason that the general awareness was created. And now if you see that today we have seen that number of new Waqf funds are established, and some of them are newly being established. Like I can give you an example that last 2 weeks back, I was reading that there is a new fund of $1 billion is being established. This is a Waqf fund in UK. Similarly, some Islamic banks have opened the Waqf deposit accounts in order to get their money and to use for the Waqf projects, like cash Waqf certificates. And even the Waqf corporate entities are using certain particular certain amount or a percentage of Waqf shares in their entities. So all of these initiatives, telling us that today people has realized the government, the private sector and NGOs, they all have acknowledged the importance of Waqf. And I can say that the Waqf is revived today, but still we need to do more to create more awareness and financial resources to reach its full potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raza. Some of the questions, in fact, a number of them from the audience have come regarding Waqf. And one of them is perhaps best answered by Sheikh Issam. The question is, can zakat money be paid to Waqf institutions? I presume the audience is asked the question saying the Waqf institution, which is exclusively for zakat deserving people. So, Sheikh Issam, can you answer this question? Can zakah money be paid to Waqf institutions?
Well, this depends if you take the classical jurist opinion or the more contemporary opinion. The classical jurists and classical jurisprudence, it would not be allowed because zakat has to be distributed to the 8 recipients, and no parts of the zakat is it permissible, to lock in some project? I would say that the analogy of the general guidelines of the Islamic Fiqh Academy resolution is that, yes, you may set up some waqf investment fund through zakah collections, but even the Islamic Fiqh Academy have stipulate a number of conditions. One is that whatever is set aside from the collected zakah, in order to set up this waqf fund, must be over and above the needs of the recipients of the zakah in that year in which the zakah was collected. Secondly, as I think I mentioned earlier, there must be a third-party guarantor of the fund in case it goes bust. And thirdly, that it must be of a nature that you may liquidate easily to address the needs if some certain urgent need arises and there isn't enough in the zakah fund. These are the basic guidelines.
No, thank you very much. That's really enlightening. So that opens up actually a whole new avenue. Mr. Raza, you wanted to say something about this?
Yes, actually, Waqf cannot be established in a day or two. It needs a long policies, needs the real estates, needs the lot of financial assistance. So we have to see what actually we can get it from zakat, because zakat is available, it is mandatory, and every year Muslims take out zakat. So we have to find out through our jurisprudence that how can we use this money for development of Waqf. But since I'm not the expert in zakat, so I cannot make any comment further.
Sure. Just a couple more questions, I guess, again from the audience. One is directed to Dr. Qadri, that you've mentioned about a number of vocations that can be taken up by the people who are recipients of microfinance loans. But what about the skill set? Meaning somebody may want to perhaps do something with regards to computers or something else, but they may not have the proper skill set to become successful in that particular profession. So are these loans available for building those skill sets also, or is there some other program which caters to that need? Or do you think this is not something that is entirely needed, and the people who are coming for asking for these loans, they don't need any skills training?
Yes, there are. I've been looking at few questions as well. The people have been asking, especially for related to zakat, the applicability of zakat on the loaning someone through microfinance models, and especially then your question about if we could invest that on developing a skill set as well. Now, basically, I would like to start it with the other question, the permissibility of usage of zakat, basically. So there's so many questions in the list. Yes. So there is a lot of literature available. They compile the opinions of various fuqaha from the history, such as the popular book Majmu' al-Nabawi. So that has collected a lot of opinions on the subject of zakat from scholars of fiqh Shafi'iyya and scholars of fiqh Malikiyya and Hanbalites, and there's a lot of literature. So they specifically described and discussed this whole concept in the light of the verses of Quran, and then again the hadith of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then again the statement which I was mentioning during my presentation from Sayyidina Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. So that has been discussed, either this loan, the zakat should be given, how much zakat should be given to a person. So the majority of scholars are of opinion, especially in fiqh Hanbali and in fiqh Malikiyya and fiqh Shafi'iyya, that the zakat should be given this much that the person's need is completely over and the person gets satisfied. So that is something. There are ulama and scholars, they are of opinion that only this much percent amount of zakat should be given, that he could live his life for a year in a way. But majority, they are of opinion that he or she should come out of the zakat receiving, and he should become a zakat giver by giving this much. For example, there is another story from the life of Sayyidina Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when someone walked to him and he said, I am poor. And he said that, okay, he gave him 3 camels altogether. So his need could have been fulfilled with 1 camel, but he gave him 3 camels. So it wasn't just to make his hunger go away, rather he was giving him for the business purposes. Now coming to the loan concept, how this will work. So when we say, for example, that all that collected zakat in Pakistan should be distributed through microfinance model, and that way we can help around 15 million people to get their jobs and businesses. So that is only a model for sake of argument. If, for example, the ulama or fuqaha, they come together and they say that, okay, we don't, even though in my opinion, it is permissible. If someone comes and says, okay, we don't accept it, the zakat should not be given as a microfinance model. Rather, the concept of tamliq comes in and we have to give it in malqiyah of some other person. Okay, no problem. So the only thing will happen that every next year for the next 5 years, the repayment amount which was increasing and we were able to accommodate more people, only that will stop. Still, the rest of the model remains same, that with that money, instead of distributing a cash among the people, you buy someone a business which could help him or his family come out of poverty. So instead of maybe 15 million, if that repayment amounts through microfinance models are not coming back, so we can still help with this model around 10 to 12 million people. So that is one thing. Just bear for a minute. I'm coming to that. So that is one thing. But in my opinion, if we go for a microfinance model, the concept of tamliq comes in. For example, if the zakat giver has given the zakat to the state, now like a concept of Baitul Mal. So all that zakat that becomes and goes into the ownership of state and for those people who are deserving and needy according to Islam and Sharia descriptions. So that amount remains there. The ownership is there. It is just now the ecosystem that money goes out, money comes back again, but that whole asset and amount remains for those deserving people forever. And that continues and that can continue. Now coming to that technical set skill. Yes, of course, the only concept which we are adopting here at Al-Muakhad Islamic Microfinance, we are not handing over cash to the people, because the person in a need can use that amount for some other things, and then he can remain in the same condition forever. So we rather hand them over the proper businesses. That's why I mentioned SMEDA organization in my presentation, that if that organization is connected with microfinance institutions, so that way the proper trainings can also be offered to those people who are given a proper product or a business to run. Secondly, this amount can easily be invested on those people who want to enhance their skill set. And of course, this is clearly mentioned in hadith of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Khulafai Rashidin, they have described that zakat could be, that's why the Ibn Sabil and then the students are also part of the recipients, the list given by Quran. So whosoever wants to study and who is considered that he can be looked after having a good education, he can get a good job and look after his family. So of course he becomes the one of those the members in the list who is eligible to receive the zakat. And of course, microfinance is open for them as well.
Thank you, Dr. Qadri. Just the last question as we are coming to the end of the session. And the question is directed to Sheikh Issam. Sheikh, what are the Sharia guidelines in the times of a pandemic, in the sense that over and above the government responsibility, are there any responsibilities by IFIs, aside from just following government guidelines? Is there anything over and above that an IFI has to do as well when there are uncertain times like the ones that we are facing right now?
I think IFIs institutions in their very short life so far relative to conventional finance, they have weathered a number of very stiff crises. The last one being, of course, the 2008-2009. And they have remain, they have proven themselves time and again. In order to burden them with the such very broad social issues, I think would be unfair, because the IFIs have themselves come in the market without any sponsorship by any central regulator. Banks in the other part of the world, in the in the West especially, have always been receiving aids packages. The $2 trillion stimulus package which Trump talked about actually is a $6 trillion package. Four of the $6 trillion is for the Federal Reserve to give as it pleases without any supervision by the Congress or anybody. Whereas when we see banks, Islamic banks, they are in much smaller and tight situations. To require them to address the needs of the society in this matter, I think is really unfair. What would be, of course, important is that if they could collectively, the banks between themselves, could set up some sort of joint fund between themselves in order to address these issues. Yes, banks maybe have reduced their modes of financing, their mindset to purely legalistic compliance issues, and are not not addressing the iman side of dimension of it. Especially in the month of Ramadan, we have to remind ourselves that the month of Ramadan, specifically of all the 12 months of the year, is a month of giving. The Prophet ﷺ was described as the most generous person, unequaled amongst others. But in the month of Ramadan, his generosity was like the generosity of a wind which comes and covers everything. His goodness, his generosity covered everything. We should remind ourselves that the Prophet ﷺ has sworn that giving will never reduce your holdings. He swears by Allah. He says 3 things I swear upon. One is that your giving will never reduce your holdings. Of course, this he's addressing natural persons, but institutions are actually owned by natural persons. So if the boards of directors, the managements remind themselves of these directions, these guidelines or guidance of the Prophet ﷺ, I think we can gradually, slowly, but surely move in this direction. Sadly, I think we are too restricted to the legalistic compliance issues rather than the general maqasid issues.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Issam. We have come to the end of the session. I would like to thank our panelists. It's very difficult to summarize all the good that has been spelled out in the last 1 hour, but maybe if I could just take a shot at some of the key takeaways. One is that a more effective zakah model is possible, and it is important to consider the broader picture as far as zakah is concerned. Another is that the interest-free finance model, microfinance model of interest-free loans has done wonders for a number of people, and as compared to the general perception, the recovery rate is also quite high, and that is one area where Islamic institutions could delve into. The other is that Awqaf, revival of Awqaf is important, and IDB is doing an excellent job, and it requires other segments of the society to come into this area as well. So with that, let me just conclude the discussion. We could not take many of the questions coming from the audience, but we have tried to take at least 4 or 5. Thank you, gentlemen, Sheikh Issam, Ishaq, Mr. Khalid Khalifa, Dr. Amjad Saqib, Dr. Hussain Muhyiddin Qadri, and Sayyid Asim Raza. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your contribution. And thank you for all the questions that have come from the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Thank you very much, Brother Suhaib, for a very interactive session and thought-provoking and stimulating session. Thank you to the fellow panelists, Sheikh Issam, Dr. Hussain Qadri, Dr. Amjad Saqib, Mr. Khalid Khalifa, and Mr. Asim for sharing some stimulating ideas and for the attendees in general. I would have loved to summarize all the points, but we are unfortunately running behind time. Brother Suhaib has done that beautifully. If one thing I can add to his conclusion was something that was said. Of course, all the points were beautiful and perfectly made. If I can add to pick up one point that was made by Dr. Amjad Saqib before he left, it was that poverty itself cannot be eliminated through business, but rather through compassion, solidarity, and brotherhood. And I think that was the key message through this Islamic social finance that can solve a number of pertinent social issues if we put to use through the right maqasid. If we have the right maqasid in mind, I think the objectives can be achieved. I won't go deep into it, but thank you very much for a very interactive session. Inshallah, this has set the tone and the bar high for the next and the last session. Now, just to announce the polls, just very briefly, about 90% of the people have actually voted for the second session, for the second poll, and about 41% of the people who voted found that it is useful. They found that Islamic microfinance is a useful, can be a useful tool for Islamic social finance modes for an enhanced financial inclusion, economic empowerment in COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 affected world. Moving quickly to the last session of the day, which will bring together the first two sessions and essentially assist us in leapfrogging the current accelerated times, convert challenges into opportunities. I would like to just remind one more time that please, there will be a third poll that will come through as well during the session, so please feel free to vote for that. So the next session is about technology, fintech in crisscrossing or crossing the uncharted waters. We have distinguished list of speakers from payment platforms like PayPal to technology solution platform like Path Solutions to crowdfunding platforms like Assist, and leaders in Islamic banking and finance to share their expert views, on how technology can be best used, which was the only resort when we were affected by this COVID-19. So I hope the last session will be equally stimulating. I have no doubt about it, and hopefully it will also deliver on the day or explain the delay in the time that we had. Subhanallah, I mean, there's so much of discussions that have come through and so much of valid points that have come through that we have not the time has gone unnoticed. So thank you very much, and I welcome Brother Mughith, who is Head of Islamic Finance at College of Banking and Financial Studies in Oman, to moderate the next session, and equally welcome his respected fellow panelists. Thank you very much.